It's nice to see new and old names. Thank you, Jose. One minute. Thank you. Okay. So one watch says 10 and one doesn't. So we'll begin. So welcome everybody watching now, whether in the Zoom room or in Facebook Live. Welcome to people who are here now, and welcome to those who might watch on YouTube in the future. And I'll just remind you again, sorry, to stay with your videos off and muted. In the end, there will be a time for questions and discussion, but for now, stay muted, please. So welcome to part 7 of what makes our inner work work. A good question always. And I find I have quite a lot to say about it. We'll see for how long I continue this series. But for now, what makes our inner work work, part 7, which I've called the Underground University. The Underground University. And in a way, amongst other things, it's about the importance of being a rebel. You know, when we think of scientists, great scientists, we see, I think, that those who remained in the confines of what they were taught or what came before them are not those who discovered or invented new and great things. It is generally those who broke with conventions and went into the unknown who made the big leaps and advances. And the same is true for us as the sensitive scientists of ourselves, the explorers and innovators of our inner universe. To broaden our borders, to find out what we can be, and to help others become what they can be, requires thinking out of the box, going the extra mile, guts, and at least a touch of rebelliousness against what is considered right and proper and true by most other people. I see there is a bit of a problem with my connection, so let's hope it holds on. Cross your fingers and your toes. In 2006, my book about voice dialogue was published after a long period that was required to write it and then get it out to the world. And although there is a lot in it that has to do with the spirituality is not the main thing in that book. But I believe it allowed me to put a large enough chunk of my knowledge up till then about working with inner selves in writing. And that in turn made it easier to take the next steps into shamanic and other spiritual work. I think perhaps a year or so before I began my shamanic work, I had an important dream. And it had to do with a major shift that was beginning to happen in my life. In the dream, I was in a sort of university, a kind of European university. And I was in an eating hall of some sort, and there were dozens or maybe even hundreds of people sitting to eat around long tables. And in the dream, I see someone that is a kind of gray-haired manager or important person in this university. And I realize suddenly that he's very sick or even going to die. And it's a secret, but I see it. And I say the secret aloud to somebody who is sitting at the other side of the table across from me. After that, what I remembered was going out of that hall, and I am with a few others outside, and suddenly a few of us begin to disappear into the ground. And we find ourselves in an underground world, which is also a sort of a university, It's a parallel world that I didn't know about, and there's something pleasant about it. Now, one possible way of working with our dreams, and there are many, is to have a dialogue with all the parts in the dream. And that's one of the main ways I used to work at that point with my dreams. So in the dream, the sick or dying manager had a team of young assistants. And I began to talk with them in writing, in dialogue. And when I talked with them, they said that they knew about the underground university or universe, but they kept it secret from everyone else because this allowed them to stay in control. It enabled them to control people so they didn't find out about the underground world, which of course can be related, amongst other things, to my new delving into shamanic work and a huge array of spiritual discoveries and developments that happened later in the years following this dream. And in my journal, my work journal or diary, I wrote that it's interesting that the university, a place that is supposed to allow people to grow and know more, actually suppresses the people and hides things from them, both the underworld university and the illness or sickness of the manager. So after talking with those parts of the dream I mentioned, I also dialogued with the sick manager, and then I talked to the underground university or the underground world. So this was the dialogue, more or less. The underground university. I am an unknown world beneath the known one, Ora. You seem lit and very natural, although your skies are low and they're actually the floor of the world above, the underground university, right? That's how it is. Things are not necessarily logical. Ora, I didn't even know you existed, and suddenly I was there with a few more people. I passed through the floor and I found myself inside you. What does it mean? The university, the underground university. It means that you can pass. You revealed the secret, and now you can pass between these worlds. Ora, what is required in order to pass between the worlds? The underground university. You need to know that I exist, and allow yourself to kind of trickle into the new world. Ora, how is it that the underground world is similar in some ways to the one above, the university? It is because when you change so deeply, everything changes, and yet it doesn't change. It's similar and yet completely different. Ora, I see what you mean. So what is this change I'm going through? The underground university. There is a unification, or at least a possibility to pass between the two worlds, the known and familiar one and the underground one. And then I spoke with another part of the dream. That is Ora of the dream. Now, Ora of the dream is not necessarily me, okay? It's the way I saw Ora within the dream. So Ora of the dream said, when I say to that assistant that I can see the manager is sick or even dying, I feel like a person who can't be manipulated and lied to like the rest of the students and people. I see, I get it. I am no sucker. I have power. I saw that there was something wrong with the manager, and I challenged his status and position. I'm not his or his assistant's chess piece to move. And that's why I discover the underground world. I reveal things. I have the guts to say them. I see what others don't see. I investigate and search, and I don't need to look okay. I am not like everyone else. I'm not afraid of the manager and his followers. And if I am, I overcome my fear. So this is the aura within the dream that says this. And then I wrote, this is a chance for big growth, getting acquainted with an entire world that will become my big united home. I can move between the worlds. I can get to know the secret and unseen ones, as well as those that are visible. I have the courage to stand up to both inner and outer authorities. What will be added to my life and what will be discovered in the other world, I don't know, but I am happy to find out, explore, experience, grow, and deepen. Ora of the dream is the child that says, the king is naked, and has the courage to stand up and against what is accepted, known, and considered right. And this, together with many other things and other dreams, which I called renegade dreams at that time, began another stretching of myself into the unknown and into spiritual work. Now, I was born and raised in a family and a culture and a school in which spirit had no place whatsoever. It was barely even tolerated, if it was seen at all. Of course, it's a generalization, and yet it's mainly true. Things that were considered spiritual were nonsense, non-scientific, irrational, and even plain stupid, embarrassing. I think even going to therapy was still sometimes ridiculed, and being emotional was not that appreciated when I was young. So being spiritual was not really an option. I was also raised in a world in which materialism reigned. I really think it's true to say that it was mainly a world at that point of matter, facts, science, definitely not spirituality. So how did my leap into a much deeper relationship to things that can be called spiritual, how did it happen? I think here again, I see the natural and organic determination of our unconscious to become conscious, and of the psyche, if to be Jungian, to flower and to develop endlessly. Now, it's difficult to work hard for something that nobody talks about, something that you don't even know is there. But allowing this flowering to happen and trusting enough to keep at it, to keep at the work, day in, day out. And of course, resting here and there too. And it gets even more difficult in a way when you have no idea how good it can get and what is possible for us human beings here in this life. Now, saying this is very dangerous and tricky. So many teachers and methods offer salvation and golden promises and awakening, and it tends to create a hunger that is not conducive at all to doing the actual inner work and doing it in a way that works. And it's really problematic to show that land somewhere over the rainbow. And yet, my experience is that people just don't know how much doing the inner work can get them to places that are often unimaginably nourishing and beautiful and miraculous. And these places are ours, our birthright, and they're within us. It's not something out there. So I feel the need to say, in spite of the fact that it might create this unhealthy hunger and feeling that things as they are not enough, we really need to avoid that. But still, I feel the need to say, hey, these things exist. You can, discover that you are so much more than you know. So take that into your navigational calculations, your estimations of what you can best invest in. It's really hard work sometimes, but you can find yourself, if you do it enough and for long enough, being and experiencing things that you never imagined or read in any book or rarely read. Things that are very difficult to describe in any human language because they are very foreign to what's considered the normal human experience. And of course, some of these experiences and states of being and living are known and documented to some degree in religious and spiritual books and teachings, but not all of them. So it seems to me. And perhaps new things are possible now that were less possible before. The thing is, the world, I think, seems to be separated, at least from, one point of view, into two main parts. One part is really and truly hungry and in various levels of real survival mode, which leaves very little time and energy for anything else. Another part of us humans is seemingly not in survival mode and is relatively comfortable in regards to having home and food and basic needs met, and so steeped in consumerism, addiction to comfort, and constant stimulation of all sorts, that people are constantly under a sort of haze. And we're sort of doing our utmost not to feel anything that is painful or difficult, if we can, And the thing is, getting to these revelations requires us to move through some painful things and difficult things. So actually, even if, you know, even those people who are, you know, seemingly not in survival mode because they have enough money to live on, or food to eat, and so on and so forth, they actually are constantly in survival mode. And this, you know, because there's something in our wiring, and we will get into it in many other parts of this show, but there's something in us that keeps us in this kind of survival mode, with tension, lack of energy, lack of time to do our inner work, and lack of information. And all these things together keep us from becoming who we are. And this is really, really tragic. So doing the work is hard, and it requires effort, and it requires courage, and it requires managing to create enough time to do it. But the underground university and so much more is really awaiting us. And at any age, it's possible to make a start or get back to the work if you stopped for a while. And even if to begin with, it may be, you know, a daily 3-minute ceremony and no more. It requires rebelling against too much comfort, being a bit of a renegade who can see beyond the illusions of life and the inner and outer systems that control and keep us small. Now, that night I had the dream about the underground university and moving into it. I had another dream which had to do with looking for my passport. I was in that dream, I was trying to get into Japan, and I lost my passport. And in the end, after some worrying and searching, I did find my passport, which was naturally in the dream a great relief. So here too, there was this feeling that the guards and authorities, those in domination, had the power to prevent me, to stop me, and I had to find a way through. And I was learning that so much more is possible, and that I needed to be more of a renegade, of a rebel, in order to find my way through those conventions and prior knowledge that were still affecting me, and to manage to confront powerful inner and outer aspects that would try to stop me if they could, you know, and always try to stop all of us. So we will part for a few seconds and meet again for the second part of this meeting for discussion, questions, and so on. Okay, so 1 second.